But first, it seems we're going from bad to worse when it comes to energy in this country, with dire warnings from the market operator of a catastrophic shortfall in gas on the East Coast as early as next year. It's looking so crook that gas generators might have to resort to burning diesel in periods of peak demand. Joining me now for his analysis of what's to come and how we got ourselves into this mess, gas and energy expert Saul Kavonic. Welcome as always, Saul. I hope you're going to put some common sense back into this debate. I mean, is AEMO the regular right that we will have these gas shortages? Some are saying it could be as early as winter, this winter in Victoria. What's causing the shortfall?
Thanks, Peter. Well, you're absolutely right. And I mean, what's happening here is AEMO is recognising a risk, which I know we've spoken about 18 months ago. And these shortfalls, which, as you say, could start as early as this winter, and frankly, we're only going to have a low risk this winter just out of sheer luck in terms of very mild weather and therefore high storage over the last several months. But what AEMO is highlighting, and again, this is the government's own regulator, is that we're facing risks of gas shortages and therefore risks of blackouts every year going forward, and it becomes exceptionally acute from 2026 and then even more so from 2028 when it is a structural issue. And now you have the regulator saying we have an urgent need to develop new gas, because you must remember we need to start getting moving on approvals today in order for the gas to come online in 2026 to 2028. Otherwise, we're going to miss that. And frankly, it's already late. And the biggest driver of this has been Labor's policy assault across multiple fronts on Australia's gas sector over the last 18 months. You'll recall back at the end of 2022, when Labor rushed its socialist gas cap policy through Parliament 5 days before Christmas without giving anyone time to read it, we talked about how the biggest risk this would pose would be declining investment in Bass Strait and reducing capacity in Bass Strait. That's the gas that comes into the south in Victoria. And that is now exactly what the government itself is saying is happening and resulting in this risk of shortfalls and the potential that we might need to burn diesel in order to keep the lights on. And let's just be clear, we should never be burning diesel. It is higher cost, higher emissions, exceptionally inefficient, but that's the world we've come to when the government has tried again and again through multiple facets. There's the gas cap, export controls, tax changes, the EPBC Act, funding activist litigation against its own regulators' approvals, which is stopping industry from investing to supply the gas we need.
Yeah, nothing exposes the green hypocrites more than if they really cared about, zero emissions, they'd support nuclear. They don't. If they really cared about lowering emissions, they'd support gas over burning diesel or, ageing coal-fired plants, which they don't. Let's just debunk this myth. I see it in the media all the time that we've got a gas shortage in this country. No, we don't. We have constraints on supply, but in the ground, we've got plenty of gas, haven't we?
Again, it is the regulatory landscape which is preventing new supply coming online, and there'd be a lot more potential resources if states like Victoria would even allow companies to explore for it. So what we have is, despite the regulator sounding the alarm, saying we urgently need to develop new gas, this is what should be a wake-up call for states like Victoria to remove their gas ban and so on, but also for the federal government to look to unwind some of its draconian policies it's implemented over the last 18 months, which has halted investment in gas. But instead, we're actually seeing the opposite. Labor continues to implement policies to stop investment in gas. And the worst thing that's going on now, of all those kind of assaults in the gas sector I've outlined, the most concerning one is the reforms to the EPBC Act, which are underway at the moment. That's looking to create this nature-positive, absolutist positions. For example, if you're trying to do a project and there's some kind of endangered bat that might be impacted by that project, you need to be able to offset that bat and every other potential impact on every kind of species on that property. And if you can't find an offset, you can't do the project, even if it's just one bat, and in return you're looking at thousands of jobs and billions of dollars investment and energy security at risk. They're creating an EPA SAR, which is going to have huge discretion and could be unduly influenced by green elements. And they're looking at to impose a climate trigger, potentially on all new projects, which is going to just throw an additional bigger spanner in the works for all approvals. And the most concerning thing about this is the secrecy under which this entire policy reform process is being underway. Nobody's allowed to talk about anything. It's all being locked up in NDA agreements. And my understanding is these secret meetings going on for the EPBC Act include extreme environmental groups like Lock the Gate and also like the Environmental Defender's Office, who demonstrated themselves to be fundamentally anti-industry as their priority, more so than being pro-environment. And these are the influences which are going into this policy, which will then be used for green litigation and all other kinds of measures to stop projects in their tracks going forward. So instead of Labor fixing this problem by reversing some of the onerous red tape and green tape government projects, they're instead actually secretly going through new policy proposals to make it even harder for new projects to get underway.